Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of College Hockey Talk. On today's podcast, I'm joined by a very special guest, goaltender from the St. Lawrence women's hockey team, Lucy Morgan, joins the show today. Lucy, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. How's everything going?
Good. Thank you for having me. How's it going for you?
I'm doing well. It's obviously tournament time in college hockey, so it doesn't get any better than that. And obviously the playoff push for the NHL. So hockey-wise, things are going well for myself, and obviously just trying to hang in there with the school stuff as well.
Yep. That's awesome. Thank you.
Now, how's everything going for yourself off the ice or on the ice as well? Like, what have you been up to lately?
Lately as a team, we've been focusing on strength building with our strength and conditioning coach. We're lifting 3 times a week, and then we're on the ice twice a week. And on the ice, we're doing a bunch of skills sessions, so it's not necessarily full team practice. We're like split into stations and groups.
Yeah, that's awesome. And what's your does your team ever go on the ice during like this time, or is it mostly just like in the gym just working out pretty much?
All the returners do come on the ice twice a week. So there's that aspect. But then if you want to do extra, the ice is available.
That's good. That's good. Now, what are your off-season plans? What do you hope to work on? And do you have anything interesting planned, I guess, whether it's on or off the ice?
My off-season plans are basically just getting my nagging injury away. Throughout the season, I had a knee issue, but it didn't affect me on the ice. It's more just off the ice with certain lifts I can't do. So I want to be able to do everything that our strength coach wants us to do. And then something exciting that I'm doing in the off season is I'm going to study abroad to London with 3 other of my teammates. So that's
nice. That
really
should be
cool.
fun.
It's only 3 weeks, but it's definitely going to be a fun experience just
That's
because
awesome.
we've all never been overseas, and especially as an athlete at this level, you don't really have the freedom to do so.
Nice. What are you studying up in London?
It's about I'm blanking. It's like architecture of London and how like the psychological effects of the architecture.
That's awesome. Well, I hope you have a great experience down there and do some fun stuff as well. Try not to study too hard. Try to have some fun as well. But
Yeah.
that's awesome. And for the knee injury, I'm just curious, like, what are your plans to kind of get rid of that nagging knee injury? Is it just rest, or is there any health thing that you have to
Yeah.
do to kind of get rid of it?
Yeah, it was just rest, really. Some strengthening exercises, of course, but just regulating the inflammation so it doesn't get to the point where it's past no return, and just keeping my full mobility.
That's good. Well, I hope that works out for you. I know it will work out for you. So hopefully you have a great off season. But now it's kind of transition and talk about the beginning of your hockey career. So you're obviously from Mandan, North Dakota. So talk about growing up there and how'd you start playing hockey?
Mandan, North Dakota is my hometown, and I love being from there. It's definitely a crazy journey coming from North Dakota. So in North Dakota, obviously you hear about like UND and like how great that hockey program is, but when you get to the actual high schools, the actual sports that kids play, hockey is not that popular, especially on the female side. So growing up in North Dakota, you definitely have to like play with the boys and you're mixed in with the girls. Then around my, want to say early middle school days, that's when I started playing with the girls. So then I moved away after my sophomore year. And playing in North Dakota, one thing it's taught me is like very grit, determination, and hard work. Because to make it from there, you're going to have to be better than the best people. Because the best people in North Dakota maybe are not the best people outside of North Dakota, if that makes sense. And one thing uniquely it's taught me is I had to coach myself, because as a goaltender, there's no other goalie coaches in the area. So I had to understand the game from a different perspective and try to better myself through my coaching myself and using YouTube videos and just trying to articulate what the best do so then I can try to be one of them.
Yeah, no, and obviously, like, how did you like find teams to play for and stuff like that as a girls hockey player? Because just hearing your story a little bit now, it seems like it was probably a difficult process.
There was the program that I was from is just the Mandan local area. It's just that sometimes with number issues, for example, in high school we had middle schoolers on our team. Um, Now it's gotten better where I'm from. So the program right now is actually on the upside. But for example, teams like Devils Lake, they or Detroit Lakes, they might not have a team in the next 10 years if they don't have enough numbers because I think they filled, when I was playing against them, they filled it with like half middle schoolers and the other half high schoolers. It's just, it's a thin number issue, but then some schools or some areas in North Dakota are more populated than the others. So then they have a lot of numbers, but then some teams, like I said, are filled with middle schoolers. So it's definitely interesting and it's growing. So that's a upside of it.
And then you obviously went to Minnesota and played for Maple Grove High School. How did you get the opportunity to go up to Minnesota and play for that school? What was that like?
That was awesome. So my father is a pharmaceutical rep, and he expanded his territory to Minnesota. So then we moved to there, and I was able to play in Minnesota. That was like the first real test I got to see if I was just a good goalie out of North Dakota or as if I was actually a good goalie. And that was very crucial to my understanding. And another crucial thing that happened there was I got to practice with some goalie coaches. And I still talk to them to this day, and I still go there once in a while just to train with them because they're the best coaches that I've ever had.
Now I'm curious, what made you kind of want to become a goalie? Because that's not like a position that people like grow
Yeah,
up, I guess, like thinking of dreaming about playing, I guess.
yeah. So it's kind of back to my Mandan days. So, you know, at the time when I played for Mandan, we were probably one of the worst teams in the state. And I was a player as well. So I was player and goalie. And I was I was a pretty good player, I would say. Um, so going in the net, I'm like, no, I don't want to go in the net. I want to stay at what I'm good at. But when I was in the net, it was a closer game. So I'm like, and I really liked how I got to control the game more myself because I was very competitive, whereas my peers in Mandan probably just played it for fun, which is totally fine. But I was just so extremely competitive that I just wanted to win. So the best chance I had to win was if I was in net.
And who was like your favorite goalie growing up? Was it someone in the NHL or was it a women's player on the
Yeah,
national team?
it was in an NHL goalie. So when I was growing up, the LA Kings were like kind of the underdog, gritty team, and Jonathan Quick was just so athletic. You haven't seen any style of goaltending like his. So I always looked up to him, especially when in his prime he took his team from the eighth seed to win the Stanley Cup. It was the first time the team has ever done that, and I thought that was very inspiring.
Now talk a little bit more about your high school hockey experience with Maple Grove and what did you take away from it and like how did you feel like it helped prepare you for college hockey with St. Lawrence?
Um, the experience was great. It really helped me because every game we play in Minnesota, it's against best, meaning like D1 and D3 commits. Whereas in North Dakota, there's not many people that go to make it to that next level. So I was able to play against the people that I aspired to be, which is a Division 1 athlete.
And who are some of the players that you got to play with at Maple Grove that went on to play college hockey as well?
Oh, a lot of them. Um, I don't want to like forget their names, but there was probably like 8, I
Oh
would say.
wow, that's cool. And what's like your favorite memory you have with Maple Grove when you think about it today?
Um, Probably my relationship with the head coach at the time, and like I said, the goalie coaches was like such a cool experience because I finally got to view goaltending outside of my own perspective. Because what I said before, I had to coach myself through videos and stuff. So then now I got to be able to like hear an outside perspective position. Um, that yeah, you can go. Sorry.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
Um, and then we won sections. That was pretty.
That's awesome. Yeah, talk about winning that championship and what it meant for you.
Um, Sorry, it was a long time ago, so I'm blanking. But it was fun, like winning sections. Yeah. It I don't know what it meant for me at the time, but it was. I just remember just being happy.
Now, talk about what it's like playing in the Minnesota high school hockey scene, and because it's really popular over there, just from my perspective, seeing all the YouTube clips. But what's it like being a player in that scene and just playing in those big games with those big student sections, and just how much it means to the people of Minnesota?
It was awesome just because I had such a unique perspective because I got to experience what it was outside the state. You know what I mean? So I got to really experience both sides. So the biggest surprise was how many teams there were so close together within like a 30-mile radius that had that many D1 commits, and everyone played or plays hockey there. So just the passionate fan groups, and there's so many rinks that you can train at. There's everywhere you go, left or right, there's somebody training on the ice. Whereas in North Dakota, it was hard to get ice during the off season sometimes.
Now, talk a little bit about your recruiting process with St. Lawrence. How did that work out for yourself? Just because someone told me that you had to try out for the team originally.
Yeah, so that's a really, really crazy story. So um, I have to I have to start the story by saying at the time when I was an upperclassman in high school, so junior senior, they started recruiting goalies, or just in general, they started recruiting people when they're in 8th, ninth, or 10th grade. They did really stopped recruiting them in 12th graders. So at the time when they were recruiting those ages, I was in North Dakota. So I was in North Dakota my 8th, ninth, and 10th grade. So had no idea who I was. Then when I went to Minnesota, I was like, okay, I'm sticking out in Minnesota. I should be getting some phone calls pretty soon. But no one came because all the spots were taken. And that was so frustrating because I was so close of going to D3 because of that reason. Um, I still look back to this day, and so there is a team that was going to let me walk on, but then they kind of, before my last 3 games of my high school career, they ghosted me, and then after then they were able to contact me and was like, hey, by the way, we brought in a different goalie, and that really was like an all-time low because not only did my high school career and I had no plans out after now because I'm not committed anymore. So that was that was a roller coaster, and I just remember how angry I was, and my dad really helped me get through that, and he sent out some emails for me, which I have been doing. I was sending out emails the whole time, but I was getting ignored, and we sent out a mass email to everyone, and St. Lawrence was the only uh, one of the only colleges to respond. And the only reason why they responded was because they lost first round to Princeton. Um, so my coach always brings it up, like, hey, if we would have won the Princeton series in 2019, I don't know if he would be here, type of thing. And he opened up the email and he's like, hey, you could use another goalie for like a third string goalie or something like that. But he graduated two senior goalies, and they were both starters. He's like, but so they graduated them, and then I came in, and he's like, the starting spot is wide open. We're gonna rotate 3 goalies to start off the year with. So it was me, my goalie partner Whitey, and my other goalie partner Rangeville that we started rotating my freshman year just to see who will fill the position. And thankfully, I was able to do that. But it was just crazy because my coach and I still talk about to this day because he's like, yeah. So as you know, women's hockey is pretty of a small community, and he was telling me how these bottom division, like he was just asking his peers, like, hey, what do you think of this goalie? Like other coaches on other teams, and there's like these bottom, in terms of compete wise on standings, these bottom division 1 teams that are like, yeah, I don't think that goalie will be any good and stuff like that, and I think he'll be a good 3rd or 4th string goalie. And now, like, just to be able to play against them and just show them that how wrong they were is will always be, like, have a special place in my heart because I'm always so grateful for my opportunity to play Division 1. And you see, like, some people that come into Division 1 and be like, oh yeah, like I got 13 offers, you know what I mean? Like, it's just a different mindset that I have compared to those people.
Yeah, that's awesome. And like, I have a question. Like, did you like walk on? Like, you were a walk on for St. Lawrence? Like, they just said
Uh,
you have to.
so in terms of scholarship wise, I wasn't a walk on.
Mhm.
So it was, if you know my coach, he's like really spontaneous and um, definitely like, um, yeah, I guess spontaneous would be a good word to describe him. And he's like, I'll offer you 75% right away. And then he just sent me a full ride scholarship. He's like, oh, by the way, I found some money. So I committed a month and a half before I graduated high school. So I was basically a walk-on, but not in terms of financially.
That's good. Well, that's good that you found that opportunity. It's cool that you get to prove all those people wrong.
Yeah, it was
I always
like
like that.
really frustrating at the time because playing in Minnesota, I knew I could be a top goalie in terms of recruitment wise. Just no one was believing in me, and there's coaches out there that was like, I don't think she'll be a good goalie at the Division 1 level, and that really aggravated me. And I think like you can still see that today because I take this opportunity. So I'm so grateful for this opportunity because of that.
Now, when you got to college, what was like the biggest adjustment you had to make? I don't know too much about goaltending like techniques, so I'm just
Yeah.
curious what was like an adjustment you had to make.
Um, in terms of technique wise, I would say the biggest adjustment I had to make was narrowing my stance. So, and there's 3 different versions of a stance. There's narrow, wide, and normal. And they're all used different in different areas. But when I started off, I just had a normal to wide stance, which limited my power in pushing. So that was a big adjustment I made. And then another one that took me back was how demanding the schedule is. It's not high school hockey where you practice, you go to school, you practice, go to school. Like, you are at the rink for 5 to 6 hours. I mean, practice is still probably the same amount of length, but time like you stretching, cooling down, lift, video, stuff like that just blew me away how much time you end up spending at the rink.
And obviously, you probably. I'm curious. As I always like to ask goalies this, but like, How do you like learn how to play the puck in college? Because every time there's some goalies who I watch play the puck, and I always get nervous just because I don't know like why they'll go out of the crease and when do you know like when to play the puck is my kind of question.
So I'm one of those goaltenders that doesn't play the puck that much. I know I need to get better at it, but I keep it simple. I just stop the rims from the Dolphins for my defense. At the beginning of the year, I wanted to work it in, but my coach just said, you know what, let's just have you stop the puck up behind the net for now and just have the defense pick it up.
That's
So,
awesome.
but I moving into next year, I definitely want to make some changes to that.
Will you be aggressive like if there's like an icing call and you don't know
Oh,
the icing,
that's
you go
easy.
out and just like dump it, like try to get to one of your teammates, like when you see the other team like doing a line change or something like
I
that.
mean, there's a couple times uh where I see the other team doing a bad line change, and I try to go for it. But it's such a particular instance that it's it's a split game decision,
Hmm.
and it only works if the bench is on the other side and your teammates are not changing as well, because then it just ruins the momentum. Yeah.
Yeah. Now you got your first ever start against Ohio State. Talk about that game. What emotions were you feeling? And it seemed like you played very well against it, even though your team lost. But I guess
Yeah.
that's a lot of goalies can't beat Ohio State clearly yet because they won
Yeah.
the national championship. So nothing that you can't like be upset about, I guess.
Yeah. So that was so cool because I just expected to sit the bench my freshman year. Like I said, no one really believed me. Then when I heard he was rotating three goalies to begin the year, I was like jaw on the floor. I was like, oh my God, I might actually get to play. And let alone a top 10 team. That was so exciting. That game, I remember it so clearly because it's your first game. You always remember your first game. I mean, I played good. I remember that. It was heartbreaking because we were up by a goal. I would think it was 2-1 us. Last minute of the game, they pull their goalie and then they score with an extra attacker. So then they tie it up, and then there's 30 seconds left. The next face off, they win it clean. They come down, and it was I think it was 2-on-1. But all I remember is there was someone backdoor. They got the pass off backdoor, and they scored. So they scored like 2 goals in 30 seconds, and they won 3-2 in regulation. But we almost won that game. Hopefully, I'll be able to play them again.
Oh yeah, you definitely want to try to
I
go to
want
the
my
national championship winners.
yeah, yeah.
Now, talk a little bit more about your freshman year. You played in 29 games. Like, what did you take away from that season, and how would you evaluate your performance your first year?
Um, I was just happy to play. So just being happy to play, but at the end of the day, I could have done a lot better than I did. But I wouldn't say satisfied, but I was just so grateful I was playing that I didn't focus on the technique side and the routine side of the game. So that was there. But it was really a wake up call to you need to have a good routine in college in order to be successful on the last stretch of the season. So moving forward into my previous year and this year, I really each year I get my routine a lot better. This year I averaged 10 hours of sleep. That's pretty hard to do. Um, and just waking up and going to bed around the same time, staying on top of schoolwork so you don't have to stress out. Because, say, if I have an exam Friday and I'm stressing about that exam, I'm probably not gonna play good Friday night. I didn't realize those things until it was too late. So that was probably my biggest takeaway.
Now, obviously, your sophomore year, your team, like many others, had to deal with a lot of challenges because of COVID. So, how did you and your teammates handle those challenges with the weird schedule, only playing three other teams and not playing in front of any fans?
Yeah. So that was the most honestly the the hardest adjustment was my coach decided to not have the team come back until spring semester. So we didn't step on campus till January 1st. And that is just so crazy when you think about it because we have the only games you play is like January and February and then March if you make it that far. So adjusting to that was definitely tough and it was also tough because we had a lot of new girls. So the whole team dynamic changed because the leaders from my freshman year and the whole senior class was gone. So having a leadership change, a team dynamic change, and then not being able to bond or spend time with each other for the first half of the season because we were still at home, that was definitely tough. But at the end of the day, we had a lot of fun towards the end, especially because, I mean, what would you like? The first games were rough because we only had, I think, the first game we played, or the first series we played, we only had four full team practices in, and we're going against a team that was practicing all last semester. And I think we took them to overtime. I think it was against Colgate, and we took them to overtime both times. And they're ranked in the top 5, I'm pretty sure. And we're like, wait a second, we're actually pretty good right now. Because we only had 14 practices. And to do that against such a top team like Colgate, that was definitely a surprise, I would say.
Now, obviously, you made it to the ECAC championship game that season, but unfortunately lost to Colgate. Talk
Yeah.
about that playoff run that your team had, and what emotions, I guess, were you feeling after only being one game short of making it to the national tournament?
Yeah. It's one of those weird things because when you say it like that, it should leave a sting. You should be still mad about it. But we only knew each other for a month and a half. So imagine, you know what hockey seems like. It's a long season, and to only know each other for a month and a half, still barely knew the freshmen. So it was definitely a heartbreaker. Like I was definitely sad about it, but at the end of the day, it just didn't feel like a championship game because we barely knew each other. It just felt like, oh, this season's gonna be over already, like type of thing. We just started, so um, that just helped us take in a lot of positivity more so because we're like, okay, we're a good team. Like we beat Clarkson 4 times in a row and stuff like that. So we knew that we had a lot of potential moving forward.
Now, can I ask you one question about that playoffs? Did the puck hit the roof against Clarkson in that overtime, or did it not?
So I personally didn't see it because I'm on the other end, so like it's kind of
Mhm.
hard. I have I heard there's like different opinions, but someone that was right there said it didn't. So
All right. Well, that'll
yeah,
be definitely a
but I
debate
mean, at the
for.
end of the day, we did end up beating them 4 times in a row. So
Mhm.
that was probably one of my best memories here at St. Lawrence. Just not only beating a team 4 times in a row, but beating your rival 4 times in a row and
Yeah.
kicking off the top 10 was pretty awesome.
Now, talk about this past season. You obviously lost some players due to the Olympics. So, how would you evaluate your team's performance this past year during the regular season without some of those players? Because it seemed like your team played well enough, obviously, to get in the playoffs. But unfortunately, there were some wins that you think you could have had back or would have
Yeah,
liked back, I guess, or
yeah,
losses that you would have liked to, I guess, be wins, I guess.
yeah, for sure. It really was difficult at the beginning of the year without our Olympians because they were our people that produced goals. So if you look at our first half of the season, or just our season in general, I mean, it was every game we played was a 1 goal game, whether it was against Syracuse, um, Duluth, what's Colgate, like so. There's there's like a very it was a very frustrating season because we were right there every game. We just needed 1 goal. So but going into the season, it was definitely like we could be one of the top teams in the ECAC, or just a team, not necessarily top team, but a team that people can't sleep on because we do have a lot of up and coming talent. And next year, our core is going to be all upperclassmen, so we will get a lot more experience. And we're just reflecting on the season. I think we were pretty inconsistent, and the main reason why it was because my coach thinks one of the reasons is that how inexperienced we are. Because if you think about it, the current sophomores only got 13 games last year, and they only got a month and a half of season. So you know what I mean? Like, you can't necessarily call yourself an experienced person when you've only played 13 games and was only a part of a season that lasted 1.5 months. So now we got those people to get more experience, and moving into next year, I think we can be pretty dangerous, especially with our first line being able to produce probably every game.
Yeah, and talk about what it was like going to DC. I just want to ask that. How cool was that
Uh,
going there?
that was really fun. That was my first Division I tournament. Now that I think about it, so and we got to play against some WCHA teams, and knowing that we could hold them to 1-goal games was definitely exciting. We lost Duluth in overtime, and in Ohio, we were winning that game until halfway through the second period. And then they took over, and then we lost 4-2. But that was a close game too.
Now, your team played against Yale in the ECAC playoffs this year. Talk about that series, what you took away from it, because obviously you gave Yale a good fight, bringing them to 3 games, but unfortunately Yale just found a way to win that series. But I feel like your team should feel pretty good about your performance of that series, just because Yale made it all the way to the final, or the Frozen Four this year.
Yeah, Yale's definitely one of those teams that are really good, and I think what makes them so good is their coach and how good they play defensively. But evaluating our play in the playoffs was really good. Our first game was probably one of the best games I've ever seen our team play. But it sucks because we didn't get the result we wanted. And personally, I didn't think I played the best I could. So moving forward, we know that we're one of those teams that could have easily made to at least the semis, maybe even the championship for ECAC. So we know we have it in us. We just need to get more consistent.
And what are some of your goals, I guess, heading into your senior year? Is it to win that ECAC for the first time, or do you have some other personal goals you want to achieve as well?
Um, my goals are just uh, to get better on some goalie stuff. I don't know how to explain it in the words. But as a team, I really think we're going to be a tight knit group next year, just because the big bulk of my class and the other class below me is in total of, I want to say, 15 or 16 people. Could be wrong on that number. So that's the majority of the team. So the majority of the team will know each other for at least 3 to 2 years, and that will just produce a lot of positive energy. I think we'll all like each other more because we're going to be closer. And moving forward, we know we have the talent on our team now to win those games that are winnable games.
And obviously, what do you think was the biggest improvement you made to your game this year?
This year, probably something that a lot of goalies don't talk about is you need chemistry with your defensemen, and knowing what areas are covered and knowing when they might screen you accidentally is crucial. So our D zone was definitely the first time I've ever seen a D zone set up like that. So what helped me was to understand how the system works, so then I can understand what areas are being covered and what areas are not. Then that also dictates my decision making and if I come out or if I stay back in the crease. or what type of save selection I make to control the rebound and stuff like that. So that was a big adjustment. And another one is I think at the beginning of the season, maybe not statistically wise, you couldn't see, but I really felt I could have done a lot better, and my angles could have been better. So that will probably, I mean, towards the end of the season, I got it down, but I want to start off next season sharp instead of slow like I did.
And then last question about your St. Lawrence hockey experience is how would you evaluate your college hockey experience so far?
Oh, probably the best that I've ever could imagined. I mean, like I said, I was so close of going to D3, and just having this ability to play here is just uh, I have no words to describe it. Um, Especially with this team, we have so much fun together. I think that's one of, especially the coach. He always wants us to have fun, and we have a lot of fun here. I mean, we're goofing around all the time and stuff like that.
Well, now we're now in a segment I like to call the non-hockey segment, where I ask you some non-hockey questions to get to know you a little bit more off the ice. First one is a lot of goalies have weird kind of quirks. What's your biggest, like, weirdest quirk you have as a goaltender?
Um, okay. I'm definitely a weird goalie, don't get me wrong. But a weird sometimes what me and the goalies will like go for, so when the coach is instructing the drill, me and the goalies will just like be goofing around. So that's kind of a weird thing that we do. Like we will like try to like shoot it into the other net on the other side, and then if we make it, we'll celebrate, stuff like that. And then we'll like sing the whole practice together. Yeah.
And speaking of music, what type of music do you like to listen to before a game or just on a general basis?
Honestly, I just like all genres. Before the game, I kind of like to listen to rock. Um, but I'm not a picky person when it comes to music. I can listen to classic music, today's music, anything really flows.
Now, if there was a movie made about your life, who would you want to play yourself?
I would pick Sandra Bullock just because she can be a goofball, but also can be serious when she needs to be.
What is your biggest pet peeve?
Um, my biggest pet peeve in terms of hockey, I'm assuming.
No, anything.
Um, well, I'll just stick to hockey. My biggest pet peeve would be like, actually, wait, hold on a second. Oh, all the players taking the sock tape because I need the sock tape to tape my toe ties. So when I get to that stage of my when I'm dressing, um, I can't move around to get the sock tape, and sometimes they take it from my stall. So I'm like, guys, I need the sock tape. Stuff
Yeah,
like
that
that.
could be definitely frustrating.
Yeah.
So now, if speaking of your teammates, who's the funniest on the team in your opinion?
So um, there's we. The thing is, this group of girls is everyone's pretty funny because, like I said, we have a lot of fun together. I would say top three. I'll do top three. Baller. Um, um, actually, here's another funny one. Chrissy is pretty funny. Um, and probably like Whitey.
Now, who has the best style on the team besides yourself? Just because I see those pads you rock with the St. Lawrence logo,
Oh yeah.
that's definitely tough to beat. But besides yourself, who has the best style on the team?
In terms of like pads, did you
No,
say?
or just like off the ice style, like who has a good pregame outfit, I guess, when they walk
Oh,
into the rink.
okay. I would say Baller.
Now, last non-hockey question is, what is the most interesting thing you've seen or read this week?
Um, Seen or read this week. I actually don't okay, when UND got upset when I read about that. I really expected them to go farther than they did.
Yeah, to be honest, I actually picked Notre Dame to make it all the way to the national championship game just
No way.
because North Dakota didn't have Jake Sanderson. So I thought that
Yeah,
was going to be a big loss for them. And plus, I just feel like North Dakota is kind of a team that can grind you out a little bit. Or Notre Dame is kind of team that matches up well with North
yeah,
Dakota because they can kind of grind you out a little bit. Plus, they have good goaltending and they can find ways to score goals during clutch moments, as you saw with um,
yeah,
the overtime winner goal that they saw. So that's why I had Notre Dame winning that game. And
yeah,
I wasn't as surprised, but I definitely thought it was interesting. But it would have been interesting to see if Sanderson played, like how that game would have gone.
yeah. And another crazy upset that I just read today was St. Peter's.
Oh, yeah, that was cool. I'm rooting for them now just because
Yeah,
they're making all the way that far. So I think that'll
yeah,
be definitely. Hopefully they make the Final Four at least. I think that'll be cool.
yeah. Have a huge impact on that school.
Now back to some hockey questions. Now, first one is, what advice would you give a younger player who's trying to pursue a college hockey career? I'm curious, just because you obviously had kind of an
Yeah.
interesting experience.
Um, this is a tough one because if they're like hypothetically speaking, if they're from North Dakota, they're gonna have a different approach than someone from Minnesota. So if you're like from North Dakota, I would say um, you're gonna play with the boys in the off season if you really want to become a D1 prospect, and through there go to Minnesota for hockey tournaments during the off season just to be seen, and then constantly be emailing coaches with highlight clips. That's the advice I would give.
And obviously, what should be done to help grow women's hockey?
Um, this is a tough one just because it's such a smaller sport, but I would think definitely more media coverage. Like what you're doing is definitely helping out to female athletes a lot just because we don't have a platform to be seen usually. So having a good platform, I also think as a female coach myself, I think I'm inspiring a lot of female uh, players back in North Dakota because I am the first one coming from my hometown to go D1. So giving back to the community will also help the women's side grow.
Now, do you have any shout outs you want to give to your teammates, family members, or friends before this interview ends?
Um, no, I don't. I mean, I guess shout out to my coaches for giving me the opportunity here. Without them, I probably would have gone D3. So I I always give them shout outs. Like whenever I win the awards, I'm like, this is all because of you. Like you helped me so much. And they're like, Wellesley was like, you don't need to thank me. I'm like, what do you mean? Like you literally gave me the only opportunity I had and stuff like that. So that's why I always give them shout outs.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, Lucy. I really appreciate your time. It really means a lot to myself. And it's so cool hearing your story just about the adversity you faced. And I'm glad you're proving all those people wrong. It's awesome to hear. And I wish you nothing but continued success for the rest of your collegiate career and in your pro career, just because I know you have a bright future ahead of you in hockey. So thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.
Now, one thing we do with all of our guests